Okay, we are calling to the meeting to order at 2:36 on August 18th, and we have the members we have present are Lynn Worthington, Deb Schley, Julianne Dow, and Connie Manis, and we have our guest Summer Mitchell. We'll jump right into the Community Match Fund. So, how do you want to do this, Deb?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. I have been looking into the mural project, and I looked at all the information that Summer sent along, which was very, very helpful. In fact, Danielle Mailer, who's doing the Bantam project, actually lent us work for our launch for our project. And so I got to know her a little bit, not that well. I spoke with I've spoken before with Connie, and Connie has said the different things that I should be looking into if it were to be at the land trust. I just don't know if the principal for the Be Kind project that they had is back yet from vacation. Yesterday, I spoke at length with Billy Morrison, who thought it was a great idea. And when I asked him, where do you think would be a good place? One of the places we've been thinking about was the land trust. He said that would be like absolutely perfect. And he said, but not in your face type location, set back some or something like that. And then he gave me what he thought would be appropriate dimensions for the mural. And basically just seemed to think it was a really good idea. But other than that, I've just been looking up the types of paints that you need, the types of equipment. I don't know anything about insurance. I think I sent everyone a timeline, and I think I wanted to, like, I think I had the timeline January for the crowdfunding if we were to do it from January to
Early
January
March.
to early March, but I want to do late December after Christmas because that's also a time that people are starting to think about, Christmas is over and, oh, I'm giving money to this, and this, and maybe I'll just add a little bit to this crowdfunding thing. I don't know. That was just my thinking on it. And that's about it.
Okay. So just to be clear, the idea is to run this through the town. So I mentioned to Deb that we would need to talk with the treasurer and probably the selectmen.
I
And
did speak with, I'm sorry to interrupt. I did speak with Marty for a bit on it. He thought it was a great idea too. And he told me more about the project at the Kent Center School, probably as much as I'll get in information from the principal. But he's, he said there was one person if it was on public property that would have to be involved, but I can't remember who he said. I could ask him again. Sorry about interrupting.
that's okay. So we need to work through the financial aspects of it. I don't, I don't know of a project that the town has done in this way before, a mural, an art mural project. So we may be breaking new ground.
Right, but
So,
there's got to be a first. And the only other thing when I was talking to Billy, I mentioned like, well, if it was at the Kent Land Trust, Connie, I'm sure you're listening. I just can't see you. I said it would be probably from, April until late September, early October, and that's a big portion of the time when the markets are up, and it might attract additional attention of people driving by and bring in more people for the market. But I don't know. That's just thinking outside the box.
Yeah, Deb, it's interesting that you bring that up, because the one thing I was going to say is that, unless it's like giant, that it seems to me that it would be a good thing to site it in a place that gets a lot of pedestrian traffic. So that's like the one point at which I waver. When you say at the land trust, of course, we protect over 3,000 acres in
Oh,
towns.
I meant right along
I think
Route
you're
7.
probably thinking about the field where the farmer's market is
Right.
held. And, it would be, in my opinion, a little bit of a shame if it was in a place where, it's unlikely to be seen except by passing motorists, because they're not really gonna get to examine it in the level of detail that you'd want something created so thoughtfully by our school children, to be seen. So that would be the only thing, is like, to me, while a natural, location would be, really good, I just wonder if there's any way for it actually to be in the village center somewhere, so that it gets a little bit more of a close
I
pedestrian.
don't know who owns that area that the horse sculpture is now on. One of the Casey's, maybe.
Katie Moore is the one who manages it for the family.
So there is a precedent for, there's more than one precedent for the display of public art in our town, and it wouldn't be too hard to, do a little bit of a survey to figure out what the issues are around that. I just think that, rather than, rather than have one location in mind only and think that it's a fait accompli, I think that, there's some more fact finding to do before we really knew where it should go.
So locate, it would be good to sort of narrow down to like maybe 3 possible locations. And then really look into which would be the most ideal. But I do see your point of having it in town because of all the foot traffic there. I don't know of any other place in town by the town hall, I honestly don't know.
Can I just throw an idea out?
Sure.
So I taught for many years at Fieldston in the ethics department. And so a lot of our work was service oriented. And the key thing, because I assume this is like a service that you're doing, it's not going to be costing anyone anything. It's not, except us, in terms of the supplies and so on. And we're not paying anyone, to do anything. So one of the things that we do in ethics and in determining, where to offer our service is to ask the key question, who would really benefit, who would like this, who would appreciate it and most benefit from it. And maybe there is a place in Kent or an organization in Kent where it would be something that it would be highly valued. When I was teaching at Fieldston and we were working with a nursery school, one of the classes, the Fieldston High School classes, right, ethics classes, did paint a mural in the nursery school on the wall that was collaborative, and some of the students participated, although they were very small, they're nursery school age, but they participated. And the nursery school was very appreciative because it's something that they really wanted. So,
Right.
yeah, just
That's a-
throwing that idea out there, if we can find out if somebody or some organization would really appreciate something like that.
That's a great thought, Julianne.
Mhm.
Connie, what would be the process working with the land trust if we wanted to approach the land trust about hosting a mural?
A good question that I haven't given too much thought. There is a board adopted policy on the field. that, discusses, appropriate, use of the field. I, I'm really sorry, there's landscapers here, so.
Oh, no.
They always come at the, so okay, they passed by. For us, some of the considerations would probably be, specific to the location. So, of course, that field is being used currently um, from May till the end of October for the farmer's market. We have things like the hay bale art that happen on the side of the road there. So, thinking about non-compete with that. There are always, and I think I mentioned this, Deb, to you previously, there are regulations in our town about, what kinds of signs and their sizes that can be put up. Those regulations are municipal regulations, but then of course Route 7 is also a state road. And so there are setback, considerations and visibility considerations that all go into that. So those are, and to me, ultimately what it would involve is some sort of a letter to the board of the Kent Land Trust that would set forth, the nature of the project and the nature of the ask, the duration, is this a permanent installation? What does it look like? Those kinds of things. And
The other thing, because this project is more of a region, I mean, not this project,
wait,
but
Deb,
the
can I ask you
overall,
to
the
repeat it
Firefly
for a
project
second? I'm sorry,
is
it's so
more,
loud here with our landscape.
excuse me? Did,
Can you
She couldn't
say
hear you
again
for a minute.
loud?
can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because this project is more of a region, not this particular project, but the overall project is regional. We, for the launch, even though it was in Millbrook, we got a lot of publicity from the Lakeville Journal, the Millerton News, around here, and then also the Main Street Magazine. It would be a hope that it would draw people. I know you talk about visibility, Connie, but it would be a hope that it would draw people. I mean, if it's going to be up from, say, April, late April, until the end of October, middle of October, or whatever, it would draw people to the town and therefore draw people to various. It would benefit beyond the students participating and the artists participating. It would benefit all of the retailers in town. It would benefit the restaurants. It would benefit the market, to get that kind of publicity, to have people come to want to see it. And since it's available it would be available for so long, they could pick their day. It's not confined to a couple days or something like that.
So
But-
Deb, for clarification, as I'm reading your proposal, is that you really see this as being an outdoors installation of a mural
Yeah.
painting, not something that might be in.
Ideally. I mean,
Uh-huh.
unless somebody came up with an idea that would work. I just don't know of any interior space other than the schools. South Kent is too far. I really doubt the schools would really want, because they're closed over the summer. I don't think they really want people driving into the campus. Like, I think that um, it has to be a freestanding model. Billy mentioned that he wouldn't have it any longer than like 20 to 30 feet. I was thinking smaller than that, but so let's say 20 feet, and he said he wouldn't go higher than like 8 feet. He said you could go lower, but then people will sit on it, so those were thoughts that he gave as far as the size of it. And I don't know if the size factors into the location. And The only other thing that he said is, like the real cute little hey, isn't it like a dog now? Uh, Connie?
Dog or a bear? Yeah. I don't know. Might be
Um,
a dog. Yeah.
that's really out front, and you can see that instantly. He was speaking about if it were the land trust, that it would be set back more. And obviously, it shouldn't, maybe it would be on the other side of the entry road or something, and at the back a little bit or something, so it wouldn't compete with, I don't want to compete with anything, but I mean, that's just one location.
Yeah, like what about a park for that matter,
What?
which I'm
Of
just like, where, ideally, if, if there were like a river walk or something in town, that would be amazing, because then you'd have like a really natural setting to put something in that was a pedestrian setting as well. But I wonder,
You
Okay.
mean maybe at Kent Falls? Is that what you're
Kent,
thinking?
Kent
Or
Common Park?
and maybe the park, over here by the firehouse?
Yeah, I mean, that's
Yeah.
a town park. It'd be a lot harder probably to get into a state park. So we'd
Uh-huh.
have more regulations to have to deal with. Hey, Summer, can you add anything to some of these? Can you enlighten us on what some of these other art mural projects have done? In like how they've worked through some of these logistics?
Yeah, I actually don't have too much knowledge on that. I stepped into this position a little bit more recently, so since I've stepped in, I haven't like worked personally with any new mural projects, but my colleague Dorothy, I'm not sure if you've connected with her before. She's worked with quite a few, and I'm happy to connect you guys. I think that she would have a lot more knowledge and insight on like the nuances of, like where the murals may go, like kind of back and forth with the town type of thing. I can tell you that like from our perspective with the match fund, we're just looking for the initiative or the project to be like have a free and public benefit, be publicly accessible. So anywhere just in a public place would be good from our perspective, but I'm happy to connect you with her, and she may know some project leaders that may have more experience with
What,
this if that would
what
be
is her
helpful.
name again?
Her name's Dorothy. I can send you her email.
She was
Okay.
she was on a couple of the emails that we sent.
Yeah, she's so
That's right.
great.
That's right.
Yeah.
Does that phrase of in a public place, would account if you were in like a shopping center where there are, pathways and stuff, even though it's
Yeah.
on private land?
It's on, I believe if it's on private land, but it's public facing and a public place and you have the permission from the private property owner, and like you said, this is being run by the town. If the town deems that to be the best place, that should be okay from our standpoint.
Okay, because I mean, I think Deb, it might make sense to reach out to John Casey and ask
Okay.
if he would be interested in hosting, and also the owners of the Kent Barns.
The Kent
Kent
what?
Barns,
The
the
Kent,
Kent Barns. Because those two shopping areas have a lot of pedestrian traffic,
Right.
and I think they may say yes, they may say no, but at least we could say we asked,
right.
we
No,
also
that
have a
those are
visitor
really
center
good
in
people to
town.
connect with.
And so
The
the
vi-
visitor center might be another place that
That's a good thought.
consider. We
I
have a
missed what you
visitor
said.
center. It's behind the pharmacy. There's parking. People congregate there. There's charging, there's bathrooms.
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
wish there was charging. Oh, there's charging of phones, yes.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and nothing immediately comes to mind, but I also, as I'm thinking about, what I've seen is, not to forget that sometimes people use existing buildings for murals.
Mhm.
And so, again, nothing is immediately coming to mind, but we might quiz ourselves as we're walking around town as to whether there are any existing buildings that, that might be suitable.
Yeah,
And
Yeah.
I'll just
I've actually looked around town and I can't see anything that jumps right out at me, but I'll look even more closely.
And I'll just throw out this idea with the renovation of the library. at the expansion of the library, perhaps Sarah or the library might be interested in an either outdoor or indoor mural, as part of their expansion.
Right, except that it's not book oriented. It really has to be nature inspired. Um, because that aligns with the overall project, not the immediate project, but I just want to stay in that lane and not make it. I mean, the only other thing, but it isn't in Kent, is the oh my gosh, the bird oh um they're going to open next spring, supposedly, the museum, and it's not Birdsey. Who's the
Oh,
the
other?
Rex Brazier.
Yeah, my mind just went blank. I'm sorry on
It's
that.
okay.
But that's not actually in Kent.
Well, it's right on the line, very
So
close to the line.
yeah, but it's not, it wouldn't, how could we technically say that it to crowdfund for something that's not actually, even if it's on the
Well,
line?
I honestly don't want to, that group has had so much trouble getting off the ground. I would just, I'd personally rather stick with something that already
Gotcha.
exists.
I agree. I
Yeah,
agree.
I mean, unless we were considering something that was on panels and was movable. And
Yeah.
so, if it was something that was movable, then, maybe it is something that has an eventual home,
Mhm.
somewhere else. But that,
That's a good thought.
Connie, you mentioned a good idea, because if we did panels and it was movable, then it could move to other locations, sort of like Joy Brown's,
Sure.
oh, exactly like that really beautiful mural.
Great idea.
yeah. So I mean, I think that's actually, I will look into the panel part and the movability. Um, and I think the panel part would be kind of cool, because then you'd have different topics or whatever on each panel. And I don't know. There might be more potential with it, and more benefit for the long run, for other locations. But oh, and I did look in, I mean, I think it's called cool paint or cold paint. You do need a special paint for the exterior, whether it be on a building or be on, a freestanding thing. So there's that. And I tried to look into the costs, and the one for Bantam is like, I think the budget was about 16,000. I don't know if I'm accurate on this, Summer. Um, you sent along, and I looked at that one and some of the other ones, and that was about 16,000, but 12,000 of it was going to Danielle, who's the artist who's really creating the overall thing. So some of the other projects were much less than that. Like 7,000, 8,000 for a couple of them, I think. Which means, like, if we raised 4,000, then maybe the crowdfunding would match another 4,000. I'm just throwing that out there.
Yeah, all projects are a little bit different in terms of budget. In terms like from our standpoint, we match anything up to what you raise up to $6,000. So the maximum total for projects for us, it would be 12,000. But if your project budget is lower, like let's say $4,000, we can match 4,000 up to $8,000. Yes. Would it be helpful for me to kind of like walk through the community match fund process a little bit for you all? I'm not sure if you've run a project before, or if you're familiar with our process at all. I know I sent along some documents, but I was just wondering if it'd be helpful for me to like talk you through it at all, or if you feel like you have a good understanding
I would
of.
find that
Well,
helpful.
yeah, John Henry gave us a little short, but it would be good to know exactly what you'd be looking for,
Yeah.
especially in the beginning, to make the decision.
Yeah, definitely. Just like, yeah. So just to back all the way up, the Community Match Fund, it's our crowdfunding grant matching program where we match dollar for dollar. crowdfunding projects up to $6,000 for projects totaling 12,000 or more. Just to back up a bit, I know that you're familiar with our certification program and our action roadmap. So the intention behind the creation of the community match fund was to put dollars back into communities to help fund these sustainability initiatives on our action roadmap that we're looking for towns to complete. For projects to be eligible through the match fund, we do have some eligibility requirements. There's 3 overarching ones that we look for. The first one is that the project takes place in a registered community. Obviously Kent is. Like I said before, the project has to have some sort of free and public benefit. So like in other words, it should not cost community residents anything to attend or use. And then it has to align with our action roadmap in some way. As you guys know, our action roadmap is very large and encompassing of, we think of sustainability very broadly, so many different action categories. So normally projects do align in some way. Obviously, like we have funded mural projects before in our program, these do align. Some other eligibility requirements that we have, just for your knowledge, are that nonprofits with annual budgets over 300,000 are not eligible to receive funds. We don't fund any for-profit entities. Repeat event-based projects are only eligible for 2 years of funding. And last rule is that project leaders or fiscal sponsors cannot reimburse themselves through the budget in any way for our projects. In terms of process, we try and keep it as simple as possible. So the first step is to meet with us to discuss your project like we're doing right now, and make sure it's just eligible and a good fit for our program. In terms of next steps, like what we look for from project leaders to continue is just what we call project eligibility criteria, or in other words, just a few details that we need to confirm that your project is ready to go and that you're ready to start crowdfunding. So these things that we're looking for is an estimated budget, an exact date that you would like to start crowdfunding, and then a date or like an estimated date that your project is going to be implemented. So then once we have these 3 things from you and we've confirmed that your project is eligible, we go on to connect you with a crowdfunding coach at Patronicity to get started. So for crowdfunding, we partner with a platform called Patronicity. Those are those pages that I linked for you. Patronicity is very similar in looks and in concept to GoFundMe, if you're familiar with GoFundMe. So Patronicity is where you're going to set up your crowdfunding page, where you'll run your campaign, and then they handle all of the payout for us as well. So when you get paid out, you'll get your crowdfunding dollars plus our matching grant all through Patronicity in a lump sum. So once we connect you with your crowdfunding coach, you'll set up a time to meet with them, and they will talk to you more in detail about, how to set up that crowdfunding page, crowdfunding information, strategies, and they'll be there to support you throughout that process. Crowdfunding campaigns last for 30 to 60 days, and we typically recommend doing the full 60 days to maximize donors. We found that this is sort of that like sweet spot for crowdfunding where it gives people enough time to like hear about your campaign, donate, and then pass it on to maybe like someone that may be interested. So there's a few rules that I want to touch on briefly that we have with crowdfunding. The first is that we have a donor minimum rule. So we require that you have as many donors as your crowdfunding goal divided by 100. So if your crowdfunding goal is that full $6,000 match, you must have at least 60 donors. The intention behind this rule is just to ensure that like this project is community driven and supported by the community, and like this is our way and metric of seeing that. The second rule is that any donation that exceeds 35% of your crowdfunding goal will only be matched by us up to that 35% threshold. So for example, if your crowdfunding goal is that $6,000 and you receive a donation of $2,400, which is 40% of your goal of 6,000, will only match up to 2,100, which is 35% of that goal of 6,000. So you get to keep that full $2,400 donation. We'll just only match it up to 2,100. And this is for that same reason of just like wanting the community to be supporting the project and to avoid a campaign like getting a couple large donations and then closing out. And then the third rule, we don't really see this one often, but it's that project leaders can absolutely donate to their own campaign. But any donation by the project leader that exceeds 20% of that crowdfunding goal will only be matched by us up to that 20% threshold. And then once you reach the end of the campaign, the closeout and the payout process is about 3 weeks. We have no formal grant reporting, so we just require that you fill out a couple surveys, once when you're done crowdfunding and once after your project is implemented. And then post updates to your project page once your project is implemented, so your donors can just see how your project came to life and what they donated to. So if you reach the end of your campaign and you don't meet your crowdfunding goal, one of two things can kind of happen here. So we can extend your campaign to try and get those last donations if you're close to your goal. We're always happy to extend campaigns. We want them to be successful. Or if you reach the end and you're just kind of done with crowdfunding, we can match what you have raised as long as the project is still able to be implemented with those funds. If you exceed your crowdfunding goal, that's great. If you exceed by over $500, we just ask that you provide us with an updated budget of what you're going to do with these extra funds, and this will be included on your project page just for donor transparency. Then I just want to mention, like I said before, that we only match up to $6,000 or what you set your goal as originally. So I recommend, like, if you're confident about crowdfunding, you can set a stretch goal if you feel like that would be beneficial to your project at all. Like, for example, if your budget is, let's say, $4,000 and that's what you set your goal as, but you end up raising $5,000, that's great. We'll just still only match that $4,000 that you set your goal as originally, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the process, the whole process. That was a lot of information. Do you have any questions on that?
Yeah, I have a question about the minimum number of donors.
Mhm.
If you don't make the minimum amount of donors based on the calculation, does that mean you don't get the match?
Yeah, or the match will be auto corrected to that amount of donors, if that makes sense. But we are always happy to, like, extend your campaign if you're not hitting that amount of donors. There's no, like, minimum amount that people can donate. So, like, if you're really struggling to hit that donor minimum, like, you can reach out to friends and family and just ask them to donate $1 each. We don't really see that often, but yes, so if you don't hit the donor minimum, we'll only match up to, like, what the donor minimum was. There's, like, a whole algorithm for it. I'm happy to send you more details, and I think it is in the eligibility requirement document that I sent over, but our match will be adjusted accordingly. So it's not that you won't get $0. It will just be adjusted, if that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Mhm.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions?
I just have a quick one. Say,
Yeah.
for instance, we set a budget for $10,000. I mean, this is abstract. And we added everything up. And even though, I mean, you have to probably allow for the fact that you need a little bit extra in case this happens or that happens or whatever. What happens if you have money left over at the end?
I'm not sure if I have seen that yet. Usually with our budgets, they are from project leaders, they are estimated, so they're what they need. If you end up having a surplus, like I said, you just would have to send us an adjusted or an updated budget with what you're going to do with those extra funds. So I guess in this example, if you are planning on doing the mural project and you end up, like, raising a little bit more than you thought you were through crowdfunding and you have these extra funds, you would just need to send us an updated budget of what you're going to do with those funds. So maybe you could have, like, a mural opening day event with those extra funds for the
Oh, true,
community,
true.
something, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
You have to be related to the project, just like, for donor transparency, because they're donating to this project in your campaign. But yeah, I hope that makes sense. If you exceed your goal over $500, that's when we ask you for that updated budget.
Okay.
Mhm.
I have a question that is kind of related to the logistics and record keeping of doing this. This is, as Lynn was mentioning, if this was something that was coming through the town, we'd have to engage our town treasurer. And I'm just wondering, I would assume that there is, a level of record keeping, that you would require with respect to, proving the number of donors, having records about each of those donors and what they've donated, like proper accounting. And how have other towns dealt with that? Because I don't know how we might describe this to our town treasurer, what the burden on her would be and what the accounting and reporting requirements, how onerous those might be and how other towns have met that.
Yeah, I'm not sure about specific like how towns meet their reporting requirements or any of those details, but in terms of like our records with donors and the crowdfunding pages, it's all run through the Patronicity platform. It's all online, so anytime anyone donates, they can choose if it's anonymous or it's their name, but there is a record of it. Patronicity has donor reports that come through every month, so you can we get to see every person who has donated to a campaign and how much. There's always a record of it. Patronicity does accept like cash check, Venmo, PayPal donations, but there's a specific process that you have to go through of recording it. I believe it's sending pictures of receipts and donations to the crowdfunding coach who you'll be connected with, Marina. And then she manually puts those donations in towards your campaign. But it's all run through this platform. So there is that record of these people donated to get you to your goal, if that makes sense.
Do you know anything about would it be considered a charitable contribution? Are people donating to Patronicity? Are they donating to the town? And,
Nope.
are these tax deductible contributions? And then also, do you know anything about what happens to the information that's collected by Patronicity?
Yeah, so these people are donating to your specific campaign. They're not donating to Patronicity. So like to donate to a campaign, you have to go on to the specific campaign page. If you've ever used like GoFundMe or a platform similar like that to donate to anything, it's exactly the same thing. So they can only donate to your campaign through your specific page, and that money goes towards your campaign. You receive the money in like a lumped sum. You're not receiving it in these like small increments as people are donating. In terms of tax exempt, it depends on who's receiving the funds. So with your project, if the town is your fiscal sponsor and they are going to be receiving the funds for you all, municipalities are tax exempt, so donations will be.
I don't think they are. They're not nonprofits.
Oh, typically when we have municipalities run our projects, all donations are tax exempt. That's maybe something I would ask your town treasurer about.
Well, I don't think a donor can claim it as an exemption.
Yeah, it's the entity itself doesn't pay tax, but contributions to that entity are not tax deductible. Is
Yes.
what I believe too, although
I've
hurts to
heard that
double
many,
check.
many times, and that you can't get a tax deduction for donating to a town.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm just saying when the municipalities are the fiscal sponsor, typically on the project pages, the donations are tax exempt. Due to the town being the one accepting the funds. I can go back and check with that.
Oh, you're saying they don't have to pay taxes on it? Is that
Yeah.
what you're saying?
Here, I can show you an example of like a recent project page. It's the donors contributions aren't being taxed.
Yeah, I think we're crossing paths
Yeah.
versus taxing and tax exempt, so.
Yeah. Here, let me pull up the project page. I can show you. Let me do Mansfield. the patronicity handles all of the like finances, all of the payout, all of the reporting in terms of donors. So your crowdfunding coach will be able to answer these questions a lot better than I can. Let me find a project with a municipality. So- Sorry, I'm trying to, my computer is being a little bit slow.
I will say that I did the Give Local this year, which I'm
Mhm.
sure is very similar for towns that are connected to the Connecticut Community Foundation. And it sounds like it's a very similar setup. And the town's 250th anniversary committee just went through the same kind of thing where they did an online fundraiser for the 250th anniversary of the country and the local activities. And they got about $4,000 through that. So what we're proposing has been done very recently in the town of Kent. So I'm not too worried about it. I brought it up because I wanted to make sure that we paid attention to the logistics of this and made sure that we communicated with the treasurer and the selectmen.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can't find an example right now. My computer's being a little bit slow. I'm sorry, but I can get back to you on this via email if that's okay.
I'm just Googling, and it may be
Mhm.
the case that a charitable contribution to governmental units are tax deductible if they're made for a public purpose.
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
that'd be interesting. It's just something for us to figure out though before we get out there with our fundraising. But I think the more, to me, having worked on the ARPA subcommittee, the logistics of making sure that Barbara feels comfortable, with the program and all of that is most important.
Yes, I agree. The other thing I wanted to bring up, another logistical thing is, how do we select the artist or series of a group of artists that are going to assist us with this? That process needs to be worked out. And how would students apply to be part of it as well? That's another sort of logistical process I think we're going to need to work out.
For the launch that we had at Millbrook School, we had 16 professional artists and 8 schools with about 6 to 7 artists each. So I was in touch with the art teachers from the 8 schools, and with I was almost having to say, I don't need any more professional artists because we don't have the space for it. As long as it's a very small part of the project, a lot of them are just very willing to donate, their time or whatever. As far as selecting them, they'd have to come from those 8 schools or maybe 1 or 2 more if we get a couple more schools on board. As far as selecting the artists, it would just be as far as who's available and willing to do it. Does it have to, do they have to be, I mean, are there requirements for them?
I think it's a
I
good
think
question, actually, because it seems like you might have more interest than you can accommodate, is what I'm hearing from you. If you already experienced that, then to me, we're not talking about something that's so large that, we could easily get into a situation where there would be too many people to logistically expect people to do it. It probably would be the case that we would arrive at, a number 2, 3 max of artists that we'd want to actually involve just to keep it from becoming too difficult to orchestrate. And children wise, that's going to be the same thing, right? I mean, how many people can you pack into a tiny little space? So we need to find some objective way of getting to that, process.
Right. I think what I'd probably do is just start with, I mean, I could either work, Tim Good is on our advisory board, and I've also spoken with Billy Morrison. So I would maybe leave it up to like Tim to determine who might be best, and him contacting the professional artists. That way it takes a little bit, and then I'd have to work a little bit more closely with the schools to get, if I mean, even if we just got one student from each school, that would be 8 students, maybe 4 professional artists, something like that.
I mean, do you think then that you'd have like an RFP, perhaps?
Excuse me?
Do you think you'd have an RFP? Do you think?
The request for proposal.
Yeah, so that you could be fair about it. Do you think it would make sense, depending on the design of the mural? I mean, you could have somebody working in different media. If it's only one kid from each school, that sounds to me like something that, that the selection process would have to be considered. I just think, fairness and transparency is going to play into this in some way. And so we don't have to decide today, but I think it's a really good question when to think about who gets to participate,
Right.
in this project.
And it may be that artists would feel more comfortable if one person was designing it rather than competing designs for the one vision of what the mural should be.
Or
So it might be better,
say,
like that's a lot of times I've heard of artists designing a mural, like there's a mural in the front of Sharon Center School. And I know they had a professional artist that worked with the kids, I believe worked with the kids on that. And then you said the one in Bantam was basically done by one person, right?
well, Danielle Mailer has designed it, but from what I've read and from what I've talked to her about her other works that she's done, she has students like it might be like designed on the ground, and like different students fill in the areas that she's designed, and she's given specific instructions on how they fill it in. And then they have somebody else, a professional, but it's going to be on a side of a building. It's on the side of the Bantam Arts Building, maybe. I'm not sure what it's called.
I think they've already unveiled it, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
I
Okay.
think so. I think I saw some
There
kind
was
of
one
a
in
story
Torrington
about
that
it.
she did.
Yeah,
So
and
you're thinking of the Torrington one.
anyway, there is one in Torrington. But I think that Connie's idea of a request for proposal is a good one, because these artists are going to have different ideas. And I think we actually should have a committee that decides. It shouldn't be one person. It should be a committee.
Okay.
And I think if Billy Morrison would be willing to be part of that, I would be amazing, because he's definitely got a fantastic eye.
Yeah. I would still want to have Tim Good be part of it because he's on our advisory board, and that would be kind of like, I don't want to like say,
Yep.
So possibly the two of them. I don't mind who's on the board. I'm not on the board, on a committee for it. I do know that the one thing is like I was talking about a larger design to Billy Morrison, and he was sort of against that. He was like, oh, it would be better if you did, and I can't remember exactly what he said, so I'm not even going to repeat it, but he was saying that it should be more, like people doing what they want to do in certain parts of it. But I didn't talk to him long enough
But once again, an artist could make a proposal, and this is their vision, and they'd have to spell it out. I bet anything Danielle Mailer had to do something like that for the Bantam one. If you talk to the people who are organizing that, I bet you
It
find
looked
that out.
like, I mean, I've looked at other murals and even ones in Connecticut, and it looks like hers was definitely, there were themes on a lot of them, but some of them looked like there weren't themes and they were just they had just a general idea and they were just like little kids and adults painting right next to each other. So it's, the process is probably, I'd have to.
I have a question and a comment, and my first question is that, or my question is, that Deb, you keep saying like I would want to do Tim Good because he's on our thing, and I'm just, part of me wonders, is this a town thing or is this a Firefly Arts thing? And, what are the pros and cons of each of those things? So that is just,
No, it's
that is a
definitely.
question that I have. And before you answer it, my comment is that I feel like we need to be developing the budget alongside these discussions. Before we actually decide on anything, we kind of really do need to figure that out, because you wouldn't want to issue an RFP without knowing, if and what you were going to pay people. And you also, the different roles of people in the process of actually carrying out this project. Some of them can't be paid, some of them might be paid, and you need to pay a little bit of attention to that as well. But I also, Lynn, did you envision this meeting going on for much longer than an hour?
No, I really was hoping to keep it to an hour, so we need
I
to
just
wrap
wanted
it
to
up.
say, just with regards to Tim, was because he's on the advisory board and located in Kent. If he were in Lakeville, I wouldn't be concerned about involving him. That's
No,
all.
my only point being, is there any merit to considering whether or not this should be the project of a nonprofit organization and not the town?
Her Firefly organization is not a nonprofit.
Oh, it's a for-profit?
No, it doesn't have a legal,
Oh,
it's
okay,
not a legal entity.
okay.
It's just a project. So far, there's been interest from kids and people, and there are other things that will be happening or hopefully happening, one or two other things, but this is centered around Kent. And
Okay.
it's just centered around Kent, like next year, it might be Sharon or it might be Lakeville. And I know
I
that
think that's sufficient for now to answer that
And
question.
I have
Yeah.
one quick question before we just go, and it's, do we as a town get, like, what happens if this is successful, if this all goes through? Do we get any leveling of, I saw the bronze, the silver, the gold, or whatever? What
We
happens?
would get points toward an action item.
Right.
Now, do you know how to go online and view that chart that
I-
lays out the action items and the
We-
points?
We talked about that at the last meeting, Connie. But I've not like tried to get the new people, Deb and Julianne and
I mean,
Sarah
it can
to,
be, you can just go on Sustainable
Yeah.
CT's website and see it, but that's, it has to fit into, and I mean, there are many ways in which it could, because it's a very, diverse and extensive program. So the menu is extensive, but you would, your project would have to fit into the rubric of the different action items. And if it did, we would get points for carrying it out.
Gotcha.
are you good, Deb? Because I do think we need to wrap up
I'm
soon.
good. Thank you so much to everybody for taking this time. I really
Yeah.
appreciate
I think
it.
it was really good to have a thorough discussion. Before we end, I just did want to ask if anybody was working toward any action items for tomorrow. It's actually tomorrow, the deadline is. So I just wanted to check and see if anybody was working on anything.
I think I gotta go the next time. I'm sorry.
Okay, I think I do too, because I had great hopes of getting some stuff done, but I haven't really done
During the
much.
summer when, it's not busy at all.
All right, well, thank you
Thank you
guys.
so much to everyone. And thank you
Yeah,
again.
and thank you,
Summer,
Summer,
thanks
for
for
being
you
here
for
and
coming.
answering
It's
questions.
helpful.
Yes, of
Thank
course.
you.
I'm always happy to have on. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so we are gonna adjourn the meeting at 3:31. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
We'll be in
everyone.
touch.
Bye.
Bye.